Dr. Wedin is a battery materials and renewable energy industry executive focused on developing global-scale decarbonisation opportunities.
Thanks very much, and thanks to you all for your time today. There's over 60 slides in this presentation, but I won't scare you. I'll just focus on the main ones. I know our time is short and we're overrunning, so I'll stick to the main points. As mentioned, my name is Wedin, and I'm the Executive Chair of Vulcan Energy. Where do I point this? Down there? Just a bit slow to respond. Okay, so Vulcan is a few things rolled into one. We are currently a renewable energy producer, so we're producing baseload geothermal renewable energy. What we're doing is we're expanding that renewable energy production, that geothermal renewable energy production, pumping hot brine up to the surface, and we're going to start producing commercially soon, hopefully, what we've been doing at pilot scale for the last 3 years, which is to extract a lithium salt from that brine. It's a brine, it's very salty, and to convert that into a battery-grade lithium hydroxide in Europe. We're also a technology company, so over the course of the journey of Vulcan, we have developed lithium extraction technology, which is based on technology that is already commercially used today, but an optimized version thereof. Just a bit of a summary on what we're trying to do. So essentially, phase one is for a 24,000 ton per annum lithium hydroxide project. To give you an idea, that's enough lithium for around about 500,000 EVs. In doing so, in building these phases of combined renewable energy and lithium production, we aim to have a material decarbonizing effect. So we're going to be producing lithium with a net zero carbon footprint, which hasn't been done before. In doing so, we want to avoid around about 1 million tons of CO2 per annum. So there's a real CO2 avoidance opportunity, which I'll get into. And our co-product is renewable heat. So the more lithium production that we build, the more renewable heat production that we build, where we're located in Central Europe. And we want to do this more and more globally as well beyond Central Europe. So just some figures on the screen there, some very attractive project metrics from our phase one project, which I'll get into. Just a bit of a summary on us. We are quite a unique offering in the electric vehicle value chain with this carbon neutral lithium, the zero carbon lithium project. We have the largest lithium resource in Europe. It is construction ready, it's ready to go. We just need to complete the phase one financing, which we're in at the moment. We have a very low cost of production, and we have certainty, I should say more certainty on lithium pricing than many of our peers. So we have phase one essentially fully sold out for lithium production. And we have some fixed pricing, some floor ceiling in there, and that gives us certainty on our financial model, which really helps with evening out those peaks and the troughs you see in the lithium market. We have very strong tailwinds, which are already mentioned by Todd in Europe. Very, very strong policy regulation, and now translating into financial support as well in the European market. So Europe starting now to catch up with America on that point. And we have a very, very experienced team in-house, a lot of which comes from the oil and gas industry. So very interesting dynamic in terms of the oil and gas industry moving into the lithium sector with this lithium extraction technology that we're using. So oil and gas and mining really overlapping now. We're dual listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange as well as the Australian Stock Exchange to reflect our focus on the European markets. And our major shareholders include Stellantis at 7% and Hancock Prospecting at around 5%. We have a very well-credentialed board across the sectors that we cover. It's been a journey in terms of how we've developed Vulcan to date. So from startup in 2018, listing in 2019, and we've been through the stages of scoping study, pre-feasibility study, definitive feasibility study, and late last year, what we call our bridging engineering study. So a class 2 estimate, we spent about 50 million euros on engineering, so we got very high engineering definition, and basically that puts us into the phase one financing. Over the course of the journey, we've raised about $500 million Aussie dollars, about 320 million euros. We built pilot plants, we built commercial demonstration plants, we built our own lab, Vulcan Labs in Karlsruhe in Germany. We've acquired some of the existing infrastructure, which has made us a geothermal renewable energy producer. So it's been a journey, and now we're ready to make that next step into commercial production of the lithium as well. I'll just focus on what we're building. project-wise. So I won't go into the detail on Europe. Suffice to say, Europe needs a lot of lithium. It needs it in a very short space of time. It wants to produce lithium locally. The EU's talking about over 50-fold increase in lithium demand in Europe over the coming years. And it wants sustainable production of lithium. So if we use the current carbon footprint per ton of lithium hydroxide, we're talking about emitting around about 2 billion tons of CO2 for the lithium that we need to produce to electrify the world's vehicles. So there's a big decarbonisation opportunity there, and Vulcan wants to be a part of that. There's a lot of companies doing a lot of good things on this front in the lithium sector, and we want to be at the forefront of that. So a lot of lithium and sustainable lithium in a very short space of time for Europe, and that's going into policy and regulation as well. But we're also a renewable energy company, and we can clearly see, obviously, from the events of the last 2 years, Europe and Germany in particular needs more energy security, particularly replacing Russian gas. We're uniquely positioned to provide that. We provide renewable heating. Heating is the elephant in the room in terms of decarbonisation. So that leads us to the zero carbon lithium project. So you can see this is our mine, effectively, what you're looking at on the screen, and you're looking at our resource as well. So our mine is the geothermal renewable energy wells and plant there. It's pumping up this hot, salty brine to the surface. As we speak, we're producing baseload renewable power from that brine. We're going to be producing renewable heat from that soon as well, supplying it into local communities, taking the lithium salt out of the brine. And we've been piloting that last part of the process for the last 3 years. And then you're looking out into the Upper Rhine Valley there, that nice flat valley. 2 kilometers beneath the surface there is a very large sandstone reservoir. And the sandstone reservoir contains this hot, salty brine, which we're pumping up. So that is basically how we see the sustainable lithium production in Europe and potentially applying it elsewhere as well. We note that there are similar projects being built elsewhere in the world, for example, in the US. It looks a lot like oil and gas, just without the hydrocarbons. So you've got the wells and pipelines in the upstream. You've got the upstream energy and salts production, and then you've got the downstream chemicals conversion. And this similarity to oil and gas in terms of how the project is set up is why a lot of the people we have in our company who've recently joined come from the oil and gas industry. So think integrated oil and gas, a bit like LNG with your upstream and your downstream. That's effectively what it looks like. We have a very, very large resource. So in the Upper Rhine Valley, we have the ability to grow as the market grows. So this is phase one, but you can see the outline there of the resource. It goes for 300 kilometers effectively across the Upper Rhine Graben. So there's the ability to really grow in a modular manner beyond phase one. But we're starting in the core of the field where our existing production is. You can see there the existing geothermal plants on the map. So we have access to existing wells. We're going to be adding more wells in that area. And then our downstream is the Herx Chemical Park. So that's where we're building our lithium hydroxide plant. So that's an existing chemical park, and we're going to be transporting our lithium salts there for conversion into lithium hydroxide. That distance there is about 130 kilometers between the upstream and the downstream. And our nearest customer is 60 kilometers away. So we're reducing that supply chain from tens of thousands of kilometers in some cases to a couple of hundred kilometers. So that's a carbon saving and that's a cost saving as well. I'll skip over this. It just shows the outline of the infrastructure that we're building. We need to drill a lot more wells as part of the phase one capex. What we've identified is that there's a rush to enter into geothermal in Germany. There's about 12 rigs in the country. It's hard to import new rigs. These are basically onshore oil and gas rigs. So what we've done is we've acquired a drilling company. So we have an in-house drilling company, which we call Vulcan, plus the crew as well, about 100 personnel. And we have 2 of these essentially onshore oil and gas rigs. They are electric, so we can do this in a decarbonized manner. So Vulcan has its in-house well delivery group, Vulcan, as well. On the upstream, we already have a geothermal plant, as mentioned. We're building a larger one, so nothing new under the sun there. Very stock standard technology, plug and play. And then co-located on the same site, we have the lithium extraction plant. Now, what we've done is we've built a commercial demonstration version of this. So we call this our lithium extraction optimization plant, or LEOP. And this has now started production. So this represents about a 40 million euro investment. It is now in production, and it will train our production team in that pre-commercial environment for the next 2 years whilst we're building commercial phase one. So that is all there and ready to see if anybody is interested in visiting. And this is the commercial phase one. So once phase one financing is done this year, we'll start building this. We already have the plots defined. The local city council has assigned us the largest plot in the local industrial zone. So we'll be building the combined geothermal and lithium extraction plant on that site. And the local city council will be our main customer, so we'll be supplying them with renewable heating for district heating. In terms of the downstream, so there's just a bit of an image there on your screen. It's the same story. So we built this commercial demonstration plant. We just had the topping out ceremony of that. It's in the same chemical park where we're building the commercial plant. The main input here is power. So we can use green power to conduct electrolysis to produce a battery-grade lithium hydroxide product. And that enables us to engineer the carbon out of the flow sheet. So on the upstream, our main input is heat into that process. And instead of using gas, we use the renewable heat from the brine. On the downstream, we use power, and we're able to, once again, remove the fossil fuels from the flow sheet. So we have 0 fossil fuels powering our flow sheet, and this is a key differentiator for us. A few images there of what our downstream plant looks like and where it's located. So in an existing chemical park, we're not knocking down any new trees, it's already industrial land. We have the ability to grow this plant as well. So there's future phases of production ahead of us. We can build 2 more phases on the same site. So once again, we can grow as the market grows. I should mention in terms of technology, these are basically chlor-alkali cells which have been used actually in this park for over 100 years. Instead of the input being sodium chloride, the input is lithium chloride, otherwise it's the same process. Now we need to finance this. So part of this is driven by our offtake contracts. So we have offtakes in place with Stellantis, Volkswagen, Renault, LG, and Umicore. So the main players in the EU battery space. Stellantis, as mentioned, are also our second largest shareholder. And this gives us a lot more certainty over pricing, which helps with the financing. We need to raise, in terms of capex, about 1.4 billion euro, and that's from the upstream, the wells that we need to add to the existing production, the geothermal plant, the lithium extraction, and the downstream. So fully integrated project, 1.4 billion euro. So we're well into that now. We have very robust financials which make this attractive for financiers. We're looking at about 65% debt, 35% equity. The equity that we're looking to raise will be at a project level. But as you can see, we're dealing with a pretty attractive internal rate of return, 22.5% post-tax, and a 2.6 billion euro NPV post-tax as well. So attractive metrics for financiers to come in on. We also have a very low cost of production. So at one side, we have a very low cost of production. Why? Because we're using waste heat to drive the process. Instead of fossil fuels, instead of reagents, we're using this waste heat to drive the process, which is already very affordable. So that brings our cost of production down. On the other side, we have certainty baked in with the offtake contracts. In terms of the financing, we're into that now. We're well into that. BNP Paribas is leading that process on the debt side, on the equity side. We're essentially wrapping up the first phase of that process, and we're going into the second phase. Aim is to have it wrapped up later on this year, and then we can go into the execution of phase 1. Just a note on our technology. So we use adsorption type direct lithium extraction. This is using an aluminate-based lithium extraction adsorbent. You can buy these off the shelf. It makes up 10% of global lithium production today. So of those brine production that you were shown earlier, about a quarter of that comes from this type of technology. And it is being mandated now going forwards. Basically, most of the major projects that are being built are using this type of technology, including Exxon, as was mentioned there, but others, Eramet, Livent, now Arcadium as well. So this is the main technology going forwards for lithium production from brines. It's higher performance, higher efficiency, lower cost, more sustainable, has all of these things going for it. You can buy these things off the shelf, but we've decided to develop our own adsorbent in-house. Geopolitically, there is a reason for that because we want to produce in Europe. We don't want to buy from other countries off the shelf. But also there's a technical reason for that as well, because we can capture the optimizations that you get from having a lab, a pilot plant, another pilot plant, a demonstration plant, and back to the commercial team and the lab. So we get this virtuous cycle of improvement of performance. And that's why we developed it in-house. But what we've got now is actually a technology company within Vulcan as well, and we're getting a lot of interest to license this out elsewhere as well. So we're producing this adsorbent in France, and we're able to license this effectively around the world. And we've seen a 100% increase in our adsorption capacity relative to the off-the-shelf product. So that's the advantage of continually optimizing this and having this in-house. And look, we can apply this in North America, South America, Europe, elsewhere, even in Australia. We're looking at opportunities here. So there is a real opportunity for this technology to be applied elsewhere in the world. I mentioned it makes up 10% of global production. Here's some examples of some of the plants that are currently in operation around the world using its technology. But it really is the next technology which is taking off because of those strong sustainability credentials. I know I'm running low on time, so I will go through the rest relatively quickly. Just to mention, ESG, a very core part of who Vulcan is, why we were started. We were started basically with zero carbon lithium on a whiteboard, working backwards from there. How do we use commercially available technologies bolted together to engineer out the carbon? So it's been a very key part of who we are today, and that is filtering into things like ESG ratings, which have a knock-on effect on financing as well. So we're top 2 percentile rated by Sustainalytics in the chemicals industry. It's a pretty good effort from what is still a very small company, and ranked essentially first among peers according to that system. And remember, the byproduct of what we produce, the byproduct of the lithium, is renewable heat for local communities. We are net energy positive. We produce more renewable energy than we consume. Once again, that's a key differentiator for us. And that results in this very strong decarbonising effect. And the opportunity, we're looking from phase 1, the first 10 years, we plan to avoid about 4 million tonnes of CO2. So there's a real avoidance opportunity there. Remember then, that's a 30-year project, so we get up to about 10 million tonnes over 30 years, just from phase 1, and then there's multiple phases. So this is a real material decarbonisation project. That has a strong impact on local community acceptance as well. We're not building a mine here, we're building a renewable energy project, and that really helps with local acceptance with the local community as well, where we have very, very strong relationships. I'll leave it there. Suffice to say, we have a strong pipeline ahead of us beyond phase 1, but the focus really now is getting that phase 1 finance, and that's what we'll be focused on really for the coming months. Once we're fully financed there, we're off, we're into execution, and hopefully start of commercial production of zero carbon lithium. So I'll leave that there. Thanks very much for your time.